Everybody's excited down this way. If Florida A&M wins the SWAT championship next weekend, it's going to be Florida A&M versus Howard Celebration Bowl in a couple of weeks. So they're going to tear Atlanta up. But it's been torn up before and came back. So I guess we'll see what happens
Oh,
this
two
time.
times. So did they kick off the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade? Florida?
Did
No. Who was it? Alabama. It was Alabama.
That was the
And
maroon and white. Yes, at A&M. And I mean, let me see. I think FAM was overseas. I think their band was in France. Tennessee State was at the Chicago Thanksgiving Parade. Alabama A&M opened the New York Macy's Parade. And we don't get down with Thanksgiving. Pause and all the human beings who lost their lives with the invasion of this hemisphere. At the same time, when you see that, I mean, you in the New York area, you New York, New Jersey, these bands, these people that have the bake sales all year and everything, and it's the biggest thing in their life to be in a space like that. So to see those young people, it just makes you feel good. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, but it was very, you had Belle Biv DeVoe, and then the great. And I'm sorry.
No, I'm laughing because
No.
when we get to a certain age, like we remember when Poison came out,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So to see Belle Biv DeVoe on a float with all these white and black children dancing and they singing Poison.
Can't trust the big black crowd.
Professor Hunter, what has happened in the world when you can sing that song in a family-friendly Thanksgiving parade?
Wait, they had the Ninja Turtles up there with the.
And had the Ninja Turtles.
I was like, okay, I see. So if we just put a little children stuff in there, it'll reverse the message, I guess.
So when they got to the rapping part, I guess he couldn't say "me and the boys used to." I mean, what? Yeah. What? What are you doing? Oh, narratives.
Yes,
It's where we are. Belle Biv DeVoe. And it's so funny. We were talking, and I turned to brother and I said, "Hey, man, so I guess can you perform hip hop when you're 60, 70, 80 years old? I know the Stylistics could do it. The Temptations could do it forever. But when we are 75, 80 years old, can these brothers still? I don't know.
Let me just say, Ronnie and them look really good.
Oh, they look great.
Shout out to Ron. Hi, Ron. And of course, Ricky, and we like all of them. We like all of them. But they look good. They stay in shape except for Bobby. Only one on the New Edition side is Bobby. But Bobby's had some health issues. The rest of them be doing push-ups and stuff. I feel like they drink their water and they out there, moisturizing and stuff. I feel like most of them are minding their business as well.
Absolutely. But who's gonna be the hip hop Smokey Robinson though? I mean, who's gonna be I don't know. I mean, Smokey just goes on.
Big Daddy K. I mean, do you know Dougie Fresh? Dougie Fresh is immortal. I feel like Dougie Fresh is immortal.
I agree.
I've been talking with KRS-One. He still's got the same, same cadence and flow. He still looks good. He's healthy. Yeah, maybe he could be because his rap is eternal, right?
I agree. Those are two great examples.
Yeah, there'll be at least three.
There'll be at least three. Mary J. Blige, well, she's not really hip hop, but she can. Mary J. Blige can probably ride it out.
No, she's not riding it out now. There's only so many kung fu kicks you can do. But why you told me? Why you don't do this to me?
Yikes!
I'm trying to be in class. You bring me.
This is in class.
No, you bring me right there. Let her go back to where she's too messy to be here with the people on Saturday. Why are you bringing her out on Saturday?
Well, I'd say with all due, I saw Kane about 10 years ago. He came to Howard Homecoming. He did a full-on split on stage. And I thought to myself, I'm glad there's a hospital right down the street. Bruh, you cannot, I'm glad Howard still has a hospital. Brother, you can't be doing them. He did a full-on split. I said, damn, Kane can still do a split.
Yoga, Botox, and stretching has done some things. Why are we here today? We have guests here today. I mess with you, Dr. Carr.
Yes,
people don't know me like that. They don't know me like that. They need to go on back home. Center. So all right. So first of all, happy all of the things. As people that have lost parents and things, the holidays become a very tough thing for many of us. And so yesterday I had a beautiful lunch with a gentleman in the tech industry, and he got me thinking about what's going on. So Sam Altman, I think is the guy's name from
Sam Altman.
Right. So he got fired, and then Microsoft hired him, and then OpenAI was like, wait a minute, we want him back, and there's been like this tug of war. But he dropped this thing in my spirit. This guy was talking about Sam's original business, WorldCoin. Are you familiar with it, Dr. Carr?
No, no.
Okay, so
Is that a proto Bitcoin venture or?
it's basic income wrapped in a Bitcoin using your iris, right? So imagine there's no more, banks or whatever, and we're just stuck out there, and you need money. You can put your eye in front of your computer, and it will automatically replenish your account. Or what he said to me yesterday, which was chilling, but also gave me optimism about where we are right now. He said, this man, Altman, envisioned a world where we would need basic income because AI would put everybody out of business, right? Like there would be no need for quote unquote workers in a lot of industries, which means there's going to be a whole lot of people without jobs. So the government's going to have to do what it did back in the day with the dairy farmers. I'm saying something about government cheese right now with the, other
How
people,
about that?
and create an environment where people have basic income. And how would they deliver that quickly? And so this man Altman developed this thing. I don't know if this had anything to do with, the end of the world and all of the reasons why they wanted him to be sat down. But I think about Bill Gates buying up all of the land, all of the farmland, because if you can control the food and water, you can control the people. Like we need those things, and then that makes us desperate, and then we're enslaved. And slavery today won't look like it looked in chains and the boats. It's going to be way worse, and it's going to be easier at the same time because we are all tied to this tech. And I was like, oh, and he said, but the antidote to this is community, self-sustaining.
No question.
And he said they already are planning for self-sustaining communities in Silicon Valley, San Francisco. They're building out the architects already. And I'm like, we got architects. We have architects. What are we building? Oh, we got Nubia, which is virtual. But, can Nubia become physical? And yes, it can, right? Because it's already meeting up. They already know they got chats and stuff. They already are coming together and meeting up physically in person all over the country. And
the Carver's classroom conversation we had Monday night in office hours is just transformative. I was at a funeral Monday, and a brother who was in Nubia was talking about he's doing the source farm to table work. Of course, the brother who is a Nubian who comes in periodically, who's in Maryland doing that. So you're absolutely right. That community, that people are finding each other, and we just like say in the infancy.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, that's going to be kind of my push 2024 is, really promoting communities. I've already had Dr. Boyd, the farming guru genius, Ron Finley's fam, Ron Finley, the Guerrilla Gardeners fam. And they're doing things in Mississippi. And then I saw, because I've been watching documentaries, and Dr. Black was talking about the seed, planting the seed and expecting a kind of harvest. And don't be shocked if you don't plant good seed and you got a bad harvest. Don't be shocked if you haven't worked your soil and you got a bad harvest. Don't be shocked. Don't be shocked because it's up to us, right? And we are the original planters here. We planted we are the people that were brought here to build based on our ability to grow stuff. So I'm like, time to go back. And then I got this commercial because I'm watching a lot of, documentaries. So I started Rustin. I couldn't finish it. I watched.
That says a lot. That speaks volumes.
Yeah, it was almost cartoonish in a way.
That's exactly the glide. And by the way, that conversation we had Monday night with our brother Ron, who is a filmmaker, very revealing. Yeah.
I had to see for myself. I didn't want to be, influenced, but I was like,
no, yeah. I mean, everything. I mean, we're living in a cartoonish moment. So how could all the documentaries and docudramas not be cartoonish? For me, even just watching the trailer, this is certainly no reflection on the ensemble cast because the brother who's playing Bayard Rustin is a great actor. But cartoonish is the coin of the realm right now. When I think of Eric Dellums and Boycott, which is why we're gonna watch it in the office hour in Nubia and Refill on Friday night, just to get a contrast. You don't have to do all that, man.
Yeah,
you don't have to do all that.
Well,
just
the best part were the opening minutes. The first that was like phenomenal because it, from the sit-ins to the Ruby Bridges to it kind of gave us how horrible this country is from that standpoint and unwilling to actually but also the resilience of people just standing in that. Yeah, we're gonna stand in that because it's righteous. That the opening minutes were perfection. And then I sat with Little Richard, I Am Everything.
Oh
And
yes. Oh yes, I've seen that.
left. I was so angry, Dr. I'm still mad. I'm still mad. I'm thinking about them damn Beatles and them damn Rolling Stones that are going back. Oh, you talk about 80-year-olds going, can hip hop do that? Well, if Mick Jagger can bring his ass out there, damn it, then yes.
Yeah, Mick Jagger's a white man, though. This is a world run by white men until it's falling apart now, but it's not quickly. But Mick Jagger is the one who, when you're telling the story and you've got the backing of all the millionaires necessary, then you could retell everybody's story. I mean, Mick Jagger's obsessed and was obsessed, seems, with James Brown, right?
No,
So
but through Little Richard though, like he spent.
Absolutely through Little Richard, no question.
Oh, you can jump on pianos. He used the whole stage, and he was able to do, and you come out with your herky jerky weirdness, but don't have nothing to do. And then I'm sitting there, I'm mad at Pat Boone. I'm like, how dare you? How dare you? And then Elvis, but at least Elvis was, conscious enough to say, you're really the king of rock and roll, not me.
Yeah, Elvis came by it honestly. Elvis, the Eminem of the 50s and 60s, came by it honest. I mean, it ain't like he didn't. Yeah, he came out. He in Mississippi. I mean, he's at that crossroads of American culture. He's quintessentially American. But what does that mean? But why are you mad at them? They doing what they do.
I guess that stat that Pat Boone and Elvis sold more of Little Richard's songs that they covered than he did himself.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh-wee. I was like,
I mean, but it's the United States of America. Of course they did. I'm saying, right. What do we want this place to be?
I want this. I want this place to be what it can be.
Oh, and what can it be? That's the question.
What we imagine it to be, because we have the power to do that. And what I walked away with is that if Little Richard could create something out of his trauma and pain and authenticity that we see show up in the Beatles, absolutely. Paul McCartney just straight took the woo from him, out of his mouth, sat with him. Them boys didn't even have a record. They were sleeping on my floor. Mick Jagger, all that strutting around. There's a little Tina Turner in there. Yes, a little James Brown, but absolutely Little Richard. If David Bowie said to Nile Rodgers, this is what I want my album, and he gave him a picture of Little Richard, I want to be this. John Waters still wears the mustache because he went to see a damn movie that had Little Richard in it and was so transformed that his whole entire existence is Little Richard. If you can see Little Richard show up in all of these places, one black man have an impact, then as black people, that's ours, right? And if we claimed it for ourselves, and didn't give it away freely and didn't let people just take and guarded the doors and the four corners of everything, it would be a completely different world. But the world needs us. You said this, and this stuck. Yeah, Satan, you ain't gonna shut me up.
No question. This stuck. We heard the last word I heard. This stuck.
We are the grandparents of the world. This stuck with me. You said this, right? We're the grandparents of the world. We don't act like the grandparents of the world.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
And
you shouldn't let your kids tear up the house. Don't let the kids tear up the house. If it's your house.
It's not our fault. We're like grandparents that have been put in a home and then there's elder abuse. That's what I
come on.
It's like that's how we've been treated. Like,
or grandparents who letting the kids tear up their house, in which we get to a certain age, you gotta get out of my house.
Right.
So Mick, you got to go. With all due respect to Paul and Linda McCartney and Wings, I mean, I certainly enjoy them. Band on the Run is a great album, but what you're not gonna do is continue to take from us. And when he recorded, I think it was Band on the Run, it might have been, they were in Lagos. McCartney went to Africa. So when you're Live and Let Die and all that stuff, it's like they are literally there soaking up. And how can we forget, of course, the great grifter, a great songwriter on his own. You didn't need us, but Paul Simon traveled the world looking for non-white music and sound, from South Africa to Latin America. I mean, they know what it is. Ain't anybody mad at that. Our challenge, as you say, is to say, okay, when are we gonna stand up? Because I don't think this thing can be reformed. It's got to be remade, and it doesn't need to be called America. We got to do something. That's why I guess, what do we want? Because we can't win a system where you were brought in to be the help. You know what I'm saying?
Not even the help. No, we were brought in to build the damn thing, not the help.
To build it.
need
Thank you.
help. I
Thank
mean,
you. Thank you,
we
Prop.
did
That's
the
right.
whole thing, right? Just like,
To build it. That's right. That's
oh,
right.
thank you, pat on the head, and we'll take all the credit. No, that's not going to
We'll
happen
take all
anymore.
the credit,
So
and it doesn't mean it isn't complicated. I mean, of course, we think Little Richard. Of course, we're thinking about Seventh Day Adventist. We're thinking about Oakwood College. We're thinking about a community that has been portrayed. Black people, the social structure, and unfortunately, too many Negroes who don't pay enough attention to us. We are painted automatically as like homophobic and intolerant. No, you got to enter us from our governance formations. We have challenges, but we typically don't throw people away. And Little Richard is a complicated story. In fact, it's not your story to tell, Mick. The reason I brought up Mick and James Brown is, of course, he produces the James Brown documentary and then gets in there with the Chad Boseman biopic. He's obsessed with retelling this story so he can hide himself. That's what I'm saying. So them tracks right there, man, leave us alone. Or as Chuck Berry did when Keith Richards, his bandmate, tried to pick up his guitar. Chuck Berry punched him in the face. Anybody tell you to pick up my guitar? You know what I'm saying? And at some point, we got to draw the line. That's
the
all
nerve,
this
the
is.
nerve, the nerve that you
The
thought
nerve.
you without even asking. Come on now.
Exactly. Because we are very solicitous. We try to be kind. Little Richard suffered. Part of his suffering is his generosity. You know what I mean? This guy is out there doing it. It's like Little Richard is like a George Washington Carver of music. In other words, I'm not thinking about, but then when you get harmed, where could you turn for protection? We haven't built institutions to protect our people.
Right. Because there's a reward for us harming each other. So
how about that?
So
yes, ma'am.
some of us will, if I jump on this bandwagon and I destroy my own people, then I get maybe $100 million. Maybe I get rewarded, a pat on the back, maybe a TV show, maybe something. There's a reward. There's value in me harming Black people as a Black person. Right. There's more actually reward.
That more individual reward.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes. But that's what right. I wanted to start with the collective, right? So there were two other documentaries, South to Black, which comes out next week, and I was initially like, but I like the content. The notion of a great migration. It's a docuseries. Charles Blow, I think, is hosting it. Watching Black people go back to the South, which I think is interesting. And then I was watching this morning High on the Hog season 2. And they start out in Benin. And it was wild. They're in the open market. They go to the okra. And then the subtitles are like, speaking in French. And I was like, speaking in French.
Coming to the master.
Speaking in English. So maybe we need to.
No, what do you make of that?
That just
like what would be the next step to get
speaking in whatever the language is of Benin, speaking in speaking in our native tongues, learning our native tongues, not just Swahili. It's wonderful. Nigeria has so many dialects and so many people speak so many things. I'm struggling with English most of the time. Made a commitment.
We all do. Well, it's a garbage can language. Yeah. Shakespeare did his best, but at the end of the day, when you have a car crash, it's like, what is it? Maybe like the Reese's peanut butter cup, except it don't taste that good. So peanut butter and chocolate go together. Do the Latin-based languages and the Germanic languages go together? English gives you a resounding answer. Nah, not really. And right. So, but we've done the best we can by bringing in ebonics.
Right. I was going to say, and that was the advantage. I think, other people look at other people coming into this country. They have a language that binds them. And they're able to communicate in a way with one another in their native tongue that feels like home. For us, every place we go, we're kind of like not at home. Even in Benin, speaking in French, and I was like, wow, what a disconnect. To be in a very African nation, there's drums being played in okra, speaking in French. And I was like, wow.
And then there are other places where that is not the conversation, or at least it is the conversation on the way to another conversation. Meaning that, when we look at documentaries, we know that, this better. These are narrative choices. What are you trying to do? I mean, and I'm going to make this parallel very deliberately because it should be a provocative. Imagine Back to the South was like, back to the death camps, wherever they were. Back to the Khmer Rouge death camps, back to Auschwitz, or back to the beaches. And why would you go back there? In other words, you survived it. You can go to remember and ground yourself. But the idea is somehow that we're going to fold ourselves into this criminal enterprise as if somehow our sacrifices were with an eye toward perfecting this death camp. Are you serious right now? I mean, to me, it's the same thing. It's,
as I was looking at, the trailer, there were some points like Roland's been talking with Gary Chambers a lot. There's Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama,
as have you.
Georgia. These are states that Texas, heavily black, like more black people than any place already, but have been gerrymandered and jerry rigged. So I've even said on the radio, like if we move to places with a purpose, like if 1 million people move to Utah, they got 2 senators in North and South Dakota. North Dakota and South Dakota have 2 senators each, and nobody there, right? If 1 million of us move to North Dakota, I know it's cold and very white right now, but if we move there, particularly if you were unhoused or you struggling on these coasts trying to pay rent, and it's very, very inexpensive to live in these places. If we moved in mass, not 1 or 2, because that could be terrorizing, but collectively moved in a whole group to those places into political power, because it's about numbers at that point, and elect the people that we want to elect in those places with 2 senators each. That to me is strategy, Dr. Carr.
It is.
The South, maybe there's an opportunity to, kind of wield some political power. I mean, it happened.
I don't disagree. Having Reconstruction, right? But those people hadn't left the South, and I don't even know that we need to return. I mean, like he said, Roland's been talking to him. You've been talking to him just as long or longer. Gary Chambers, back and forth. If 1 million people simply participated in politics, ain't nobody got to move nowhere. Mississippi is, they say it's 40% black, which in my mind means probably half. And like I say, Louisiana is 1/3 by their numbers. So, and by there I mean the government, the social structure. Yeah, if we just participated. I mean, in other words, nobody has to even move anywhere. I think these narratives of return are, it's like the year of return in Africa. The recent holiday issue of Essence magazine is talking about this going back to Africa, and they got this Afro Future Festival is going to take place between Christmas and New Year's. But when you look at it, what are the people who are doing? Some of this is just recapturing the momentum of memory. I mean, Du Bois said this in the 40s. Esther Cooper Jackson was there. The first SNCC, the Southern Youth Congress, the Southern Negro Youth Conference. Behold the land. He said, a future of our people is in the South. I mean, we could move to North and South Dakota and maybe take over some senators if we moved in mass. We could also simply go to the polls in Mississippi, and if they say we ain't got enough ballots, wait and put 2 senators in from Mississippi, and then and make Joe Manchin irrelevant. Kristen Sinema, put 2 in from Louisiana, put 2 in from Texas, 2 in from Texas. Texas is already majority non-white. It's not even, this ain't even, you can just do the math. People look at Tennessee and say, oh, Tennessee cannot be recaptured. Did all of y'all participate? And then again, people say, well, we're caping for voting. Absolutely are. Because are you ready for the alternative? Last week, what was it, Monday, the ruling came down the Supreme Court. There are 2 cases that just were decided on gun rights. The Oregon district judge in Oregon in this little podunk white town, it's going to be overturned, I think. He's saying, you can't restrict the second, it ain't even the Second Amendment. It says the Oregon Constitution doesn't allow you to have background checks. So in other words, they are, and by they, I mean those who feel like their interests now must be protected with violence, are going to take that step. So you can either vote and get representatives in and force them to take the next step, which they've already setting up for, which is what? To render the vote meaningless. Okay, you won the election, but now, as we see in Ohio with the anti-abortion zealots in the Ohio legislature, oh, y'all had a referendum to enshrine a woman's right to choose in the Ohio Constitution? Okay, now we're going to pass a law to say the courts cannot interpret the Constitution. No, you're going to force them, but you have to force them to do it. And once you force them to do it, now we can do what we need to do. What? We got to fight these people. Y'all understand? Ain't gonna be no peace with these people. You can't make peace with them. So, but to get there, you got to participate, and you don't need to move 1 million people to a state. You just in your state, you just need to get involved. If we got involved in the states we in, we wouldn't have to worry.
That's what Shaughnessy Sachet said. Just vote where you are. Period.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it. You're right. You're absolutely right. And
vote where you are.
All the people saying no tangibles, no vote. Actually, is no vote. You will never get tangibles. if you don't
Nope.
vote. You'll never get tangibles. Only come through the legislative body or the
No
executive
question.
body. Period.
No
You're
question.
not going to get
No question.
tangibles if you don't vote.
No
Period.
question. No question. And don't worry, those of you who want to fight these people, you'll get your chance. You will absolutely get your chance. Participating in the political process isn't about finding a silver bullet, finding a magic cure. Ultimately, this is not going to be resolved, the question of a better society anywhere in the world, by the ballot box. But the ballot box is a necessary step to push to the next level of struggle. It's unfortunate. I'm not one of those people who believes that human beings are inherently evil, like the current Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, a pure theocrat who believes that at least has said out of his mouth, as we might say in Ebonics, that the basic nature of human beings is evil. I'm not one of those people, but at the same time, I do recognize that this system has a lot to lose. And by this system, I mean the modern world system. I mean the system that has come into existence on a global scale in the last 500-600 years or so. As you say, I took a little moment away from the DMV, and I came south. I'm from the U.S. South. I was born in the U.S. South, and so it's a different pace. It's a different rhythm. You see your people. You're sitting differently. And as much as I love New York and Philadelphia and D.C., well, New York and Philadelphia more than D.C., but I I relish the opportunity to just sit still. And moments like this where you get a couple of days back to back to string together. I don't like to rush. So sometimes I force myself not to rush. And one of the things I did, went and got up and said, you know what, I'm just going to leave for a couple of days, pack the bag, a few books. My people are down here. So I got on transportation. No driving, no plane. That'll get you there quicker. I got on the bus. Yeah, I'm a bus rider. Back in the day when Greyhound was Greyhound, back in the day, I even had a Greyhound cap. I would get on my Greyhound and go. So I packed the bag, and then I was reading a couple of books I want to finish in the next week or so. Ned Blackhawk's book, which is just a very fascinating book, The Rediscovery of America, Native Peoples and the Unmaking of United States History. Blackhawk is a very interesting person, writer. This book's almost 600 pages, and he's split it into two parts. Number one, Indians and Empires, and number two, the struggles for sovereignty. And I'm gonna come back to this in a minute, but related to something else. But the one I want to mention now is a much shorter book. This book is not even 200 pages. It's 180 pages. Yeah, including the index, 190. It's called Why Empires Fall: Rome, America, and the Future of the West. Peter Heather and John Rapley just came out. Actually, both of these are, interestingly enough, Yale University Press, which matters. And I'll talk about that in a minute, which is why we got to have our own institutions. Well, one of the things that this book, Why Empires Fall, it starts with this question: can the West make itself great again? Should it even try? Between 1800 and the turn of this millennium, the West rose to dominate the planet. Over those 2 centuries, it went from being one among the several peer players in an emerging global economy to producing fully 8/10 of the world's output. Simultaneously, average incomes in the Western world, today's developed OECD economies, increased from roughly equal to those of the rest of humanity to 50 times greater. What they're going through, what they go through in this book, is how, over the last couple of millennium, couple of thousand years, the West emerged as a dominant form of social structure on this planet, and how, at key moments, key flashes in those iterations that led to the development of the West, thinking about, of course, Rome, which they spent a lot of time here on Rome, but how they collapse, how they end. And at the heart of all of these moments of ending is radical structural inequality. And not inequality in terms of we have the equal capacity to exploit each other. No, inequality in terms of these people have a lot, these people have nothing. And in between, there's a sliver of people who are being coaxed into believing that if they just work hard enough, or if they continue to invest in this, they can get to that small group of people at the top of the system, which is, of course, a finite amount. There's a finite amount of people who can be there. And so it's very interesting. The last chapter of this book Chapter 8 is called Death of the Nation. And it starts with Brexit, rather. And it talks about these internal divisions in these empires, these Western empires, and it takes it back again to Rome in the 5th century. When you have a handful of people who have everything, they think they should and make decisions for the rest of the people in a society. And it's only possible to do that if the rest of the people in society are either coerced into going along. This is where the military becomes very important, and we'll bring that back in a minute to what's going on, what happened this past week in the federal and state courts in the United States of America. Or you give them an investment stake that makes them think they can continue to make progress. In some ways, that's electoral politics in the so-called Western democracies, even as we are seeing, as I'm going to talk about in a minute, what happens when the electoral politics begins to unearth the deep hatreds in the system you're in, and enough people don't get involved to overwhelm that. But these elites decide they can make all the decisions. Financial elites, economic elites, those with the resources. Prof, you mentioned Bill Gates a minute ago. I left this one at the house because it's a quick read, and I figured I would just wait till I get back to finish it. The Bill Gates Problem that just came out a couple of weeks ago, the book that reported it on Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation. Gates Foundation, he's not reading it as a philanthropy. He's reading it as another extension of Bill Gates' idea that because he has all these resources, he can do whatever the hell he wants. And he should do whatever the hell he wants. He has an obligation as the master of all of us to make these decisions, and he'll do it through the Gates Foundation. And the book chronicles, the successes in terms of global health initiatives, but also the deep structural failures and tilting at windmills in the area of education. Some of y'all are Gates Millennium Scholars. I've had them myself, at Howard and other universities. I've spoken to all the assembled Gates Millennium Scholars, and then Gates got out of that business. Why? Because whether it be charter schools, the Millennial Scholars, STEM programs, you're playing mad scientists, but you're doing it because you believe that among humans, you're the human God. And you should do, and nobody should tell you what to do. You're smarter than everybody, you're better than everybody, you're richer than everybody. All of that a bold-faced lie in terms of your innate human abilities. But the system is set up to do that. That's what this book is talking about, why empires fall. But, and again, probably you open talking about this guy, Sam Altman at OpenAI. And, this is yesterday's New York Times. And shout out to everybody who went to the Macy's Parade. If I had been in the East Coast, I probably would have went up to the Macy's Parade again. The Macy's Parade, a great example of capitalism in the world system. Most of the balloons representing products that they are marketing to children to buy. And so, every time I've gone to the Macy's Parade, I watch the children who know all the balloons, all the people on the floats, and their parents, some of them sitting there bemused. How do you know all that? Because you got the television babysitting your child. And now they want to go buy all the stuff. And then Klaus comes, the last act in the Macy's Parade, waving, Santa Claus, that is, bye, bye, spelled B-U-Y. And then, of course, Black Friday ensues. But I just laughed because this was the front page yesterday's national edition of the New York Times. There's Ron McDon letting you know, come get these burgers. But at any rate, below the fold is the struggle over the future of AI. The capitalist perspective wins. Because, of course, Altman is in the process of being returned to his CEO position. But what Kevin Roose wrote in the Shift column in yesterday's New York Times is that the struggle at OpenAI and Sam Altman, the CEO who was deposed and then looks like going to be restored along with Larry Summers and somebody else to be the new board, is really a struggle that he characterizes between team capitalism and team Leviathan. Team capitalism is Altman and them. I mean, apparently the real contretemps that was stirred was over the development of what they're calling artificial general intelligence. And artificial general intelligence is an artificial intelligence that can perform a variety of tasks at or above human levels of intelligence, and a system capable of evading human control and endangering humanity. But of course, anybody who binged on the Terminator movies already knows what that looks like. Skynet is here. And so, not that that's a secret. These devices obviously tell us as much. But What's interesting in that conversation is that Altman is team capitalist pushers. He's gonna push it. Team capitalism. Hey, let's just do it. Let's find out. Let's get it. Okay, we've developed an AI and artificial intelligence that can do math problems that it hasn't seen before. So it isn't about just feeding data in. It's not just about making statistical predictions about which word now goes after the other word, which is why all the students right now at the end of the semester who are going to try to use Chat GPT to write their papers. Yeah, we see y'all. But at any rate, no, this is the next leap. And Altman is all excited about it. Meanwhile, you've got others who he's calling in this article, Kevin Root's Team Leviathan, that is saying, no, if you loose this on the world, this could be the end of the species. Because if this thing develops, if this technology develops, if this artificial intelligence develops to the level that is predicted and perhaps already here in the level of artificial general intelligence, then it's going to decide perhaps that we need to get rid of the species. And then, whether you're a fan of the Terminator movies or The Matrix, you understand, Mr. Anderson. I've got an idea. Human beings are a virus. What you gonna do about that? Oh, it's no longer sitting up after Thanksgiving meal playing on your video games or watching. Now the thing is deciding that you're the problem on the planet. Environment, the environment. Yesterday's Financial Times, the day before, 2.9% Celsius increase in degree. They're saying even if all the commitments of the Paris Accords are met, global warming is still going to overwhelm the planet. Well, guess what? Artificial general intelligence said, "Oh, we know the problem. All we got to do is get rid of this species." And next thing you know, we're gone out of it. And Sam Altman can count his money in whatever comes after this. Of course, maybe nothing comes after this. After all, shout out to Bishop Carlton Pearson who made transition last week. Carlton Pearson said it ain't no hell, and they kicked him out of the church. But anyway, we're all going to go if there is one. And Sam Altman may be there cooling his heels, saying, "I made a mistake." Yeah, and that was the struggle at this battle over OpenAI, the company that he was the CEO in. This is not a battle over technology. This is a battle over ideas. And in a society where the people who have the most resources think they should lord it over the rest of us, it's going to continue that way until we course correct. And you can't course correct by joining them and thinking you can influence them by whispering in their ears. That that open AI battle is showing us this. So anyway, sometimes, you have a moment where you can take a second and kind of pull back. And that's what I've done over the last couple of days. Just wanted to sit and pull back. Now the ancestors are always present, which is why what I'm about to, mention now, I want to say it very quickly and move on. I got on the transportation. I'm thinking about all these people, all the people that we, no longer here physically, who walked on top of the earth, who made transition. And Monday, I was at a ritual of initiation into eternity for one of our master teachers, the great Annette Stone Blake, Ya Asante Wa Blake, Dr. Blake, who was for many years the International Secretary for the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. All love and sympathy to her sister, Yvonne, her daughter, Tebet, her grandson, Javier, all longtime ASCAP members, part of our family. And this was a sister who, just a brilliant educator, lifelong educator, and all the institutions that she represented and was a member of were there convening for the ritual. And so as we were sitting there, thinking about her, that echo, that was Monday. And then Tuesday had class, last day of class. Shout out to the Nubians, a young brother from California. His sister goes to Howard. He's in school in California, but he's in Nubia. The shout out to you, brother, who came all the way across. He came to see his sister in D.C. And since he was in town a couple of days early, he came into class. Came in with his fly Senegalese African outfit on. I was loving it, man. Their parents, by the way, are from Tanzania, but they were born here. And so we had this whole conversation about African people in a global sense. He was sitting in the front row, had his copy of The Groundings with My Brothers, all tabbed up and marked out, Walter Rodney. I'm like, this brother right here, just that's what makes your heart sing when you know. But the important thing, of course, being that while we were sitting at a university, he had come through there because of what we're doing here. Again, we've jailbroken the Black university. We put universities, black, white, and polka dot, where they should be, on the periphery of our community work. We can use them, but they shouldn't drive the way we think about things, as I was talking about last week and over again. So then the following day, said, you know what? I'll just get on the freight, come on down this way. I got a message on the phone from Brother Mariama Kamal. Muhammad Kamal is the historian for the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League of the World, the UNIA ACL. I did not know. I was already near Richmond when I got this message from him, and I responded immediately because he reached out to let me know that one of our great elders, Baba Aduno Tariq, had made transition. Aduno Tariq, those people in the DMV area in the United States and beyond, you know Baba Aduno. He was around. He was a presence. He made it into his mid 70s and 75 years old. He was born in Beaumont, Texas. His people, his mother and father, from Mississippi, and Mississippi. His mother's from Mississippi. His father from Louisiana. Yeah. Murtis Lee Fernandin was his mother, and his father, Frank Woods, St. Landry's Parish, Louisiana. His mother from Mississippi, but he was born in Beaumont, Texas, and raised there. Uh, Star athlete, basketball was his sport. He's about 6'8", uh, slim, kind of Bill Russell kind of build, and I mean, brilliant brother, track man. But most importantly, he was a scholar. He was a stalwart member of Division 183, the Banneker with the division of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. And I didn't know that he was making transition when I started South. And I just happened to put this UNIA shirt on in the bag. I said, I'm going to wear a t-shirt. And of course, this is a UNIA shirt, Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, the red, black, and green. That's the full name of the UNIACL. And here's the thing about Baba Aduno, who spent his life as a teacher. Um, he had several sayings that he always would say. His most famous, I think, there is no culture without agriculture. Baba Aduno would always say that. And of course, that's true. Uh, we live on the land. We are part of the land. We are part of that ecosystem. So it's very, opportune and proud that you were talking about all the people who have connected in Nubia, things that they are already doing, in that vein. So Baba Duma will always say this. There's no culture without agriculture. He would always also say something, he didn't coin this, but he would always say it, readers are leaders. He's a constant and veteran reader. I don't know any historian at any valence in any profession, professional or non-professional, however you want to characterize it, who could make more connections between historical events and people than Aduno Tariq. And I mean that from the bottom of my being. I don't know of anybody, these award winners, these book writers, these academic, no, that was any more astute. In fact, most of them not nearly as astute. In fact, I can't really think of anybody making connections who had the felicity that he had. Aduno had a head that was oriented around numbers. He could tell you everybody's birthday. He could tell you when something happened. He could pull an event or a date out of his head like that, a place. He grew up, was raised in the Pentecostal tradition, so the whole Azusa Street movement. I mean, he was everywhere all the time. We'd sit and talk about the Pan African Congresses. We could talk about. I'm talking about the Congresses of the 1970s with Barack and them. Anyway, I could talk forever about Aduno Tariq. And maybe in office hours, some of the folks who knew him as I did, and many others who knew him for a lot longer than the 23 years or so that I knew him, can come in and share. But it made me think about how in our governance formation, those who give of themselves selflessly, and he was a selfless giver constantly in the streets of, the first time I met Baba Aduno, I was on Howard's campus. This is my first year at Howard. This is the fall of 2000. And everybody, was just standing around talking with him. And, I walked up and we started talking. I'm new here, blah, blah. And so I went back to my office, and the chairman of African American Studies at the time, the great Russell Lee Adams, I asked Dr. Adams, you just got Aduno Tariq? He said, yeah, man, I know him. He said, if the world was fair, he'd be a college professor. What do you mean? And he knows as much or more as anybody around here, this campus. I said, oh, wow. So then I decided to invite him to my class. So I did, my Black Aesthetics class. And I said, you want to speak to the class? He said, sure. And the Duno man held forth for about 45 minutes. And I was just sitting there like, wow, this guy is amazing. So he had an open invitation. Baba Duno would come. Sometimes he'd bring other people, would come sit in on class. And yeah, I'd turn it over to him. Or I'd throw out, we'd be in the middle of a conversation, we're reading a text or having a conversation. I would ask him his opinion. And invariably, if it happened since the 1950s, he probably knew the people if there was some prominence. Howard Thurman, Baba Duno, uh, was around Howard's campus when Howard Thurman released his memoir, and he was there for the book signing. So he talks about Howard Thurman. He talked about Mordecai Johnson. He talked about, all these people. So anyway, I bring all that up to say that in our governance formation, we have to hold those people sacred. And while he used technology, he wasn't overused by technology. And so I was thinking about him coming down here Wednesday. And I also read in the newspaper, by the way, parenthetically in the Times, this is from yesterday's Times, Bob Content, rather, who was the owner of St. Mark's Bookshop. Some of y'all in New York know St. Mark's. I spent a lot of money in St. Mark's over the years at St. Mark's Place in the East Village. He made transition at 80. Um, and he refused to carry books that fell below a certain standard in terms of materials. I used to go there because I could get the Black Scholar off the rack at St. Mark's Bookstop. Now the Black Scholar is actually getting ready to go completely digital and then maybe out of existence. This is the oldest journal in Black studies, of course, founded by Nathan Hare, who is still around. Not doing it in the best of health, but still fighting on. But anyway, I remember many nights, Friday nights, leaving Philly, driving up to New York, going to St. Mark's, and there's Bob Content, and I'd be back there in the back asking him about some obscure magazines, and he would pull out this and that. I'm like, man, but these are folks who value centering intellectual work and community to kind of bring this into the valence. So I've been thinking about a lot of those things. Eventually he went bankrupt trying to keep the bookstore open because people weren't coming in that way, and the rent kept going up, this kind of thing. So, you know, it made me think about it. And then, having been here the last couple of days, gathering Thursday because that's what people do. And we were all provoked. I got a chance to spend that day with the Kelsey family, who brought me into my consciousness in many ways in Columbus, Ohio, when Baba Mariba Kelsey and Muhammad Niabi Kelsey and their families really had an institution called the African Center for Study and Worship on the east side of Columbus, and that was our study group. We were students from Ohio State. We came over there. They had established this years before, and that was the place where we really came into consciousness. That's why study groups are so important. Nubia is, in my mind, very much an extension of the African Center and of the network that it was part of, called the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. And, we were all gathered, and so everybody's, sitting around talking. And Bob Mariba, who is, will be 99 his next birthday, says, you want to ask a question. Why are we thankful? What are we thankful? I mean, and there's the obvious answer. We're thankful for life. We're thankful for friends and family. But why are we thankful in a place like this? And why are we thankful on a day like this when the indigenous people are like, what the hell? And we should all be thinking like they thinking. They set upon us. Ned Blackhawk starts this book with a question. Ned Blackhawk starts this book with a question. Ned Blackhawk starts this book, The Rediscovery of America, Native Peoples and the Unmaking of U.S. History, with a question. He says, how can a nation founded on the homelands of dispossessed indigenous peoples be the world's most exemplary democracy? This question haunts America as it does other settler nations. Among historians, silence, rather than engagement, has been the most common response, together with a continued unwillingness to see America's diversity from the vantage point of those most impacted by the expansion of the United States. He talks in, and I won't go like this is fast. He says, in a more complex narrative, maybe this is the one that can exist, a multicultural America struggles to extend its national promise to every one of its citizens and live according to its founding proclamation that all are created equal. Despite assertions to the contrary, American democracy arose from the dispossession of American Indians. If history provides the common soil for a nation's growth and a window into its future, it is time to reimagine U.S. history outside the tropes of discovery that have bred exclusion and misunderstanding. Finding answers to the challenges of our time, racial strife, climate crisis, domestic and global inequities, among others, will require new concepts, approaches, and commitments. It is time to put down the interpretive tools of the previous century and take up new ones. He's absolutely right. And of course, that's what our Africana Studies framework is. It's a new conceptual tool built on generations of people thinking in that vein. There's nothing original about it except trying to combine and listen to what has come before and continue to reiterate that remembering. Now, one thing I don't like about this book so far is that the idea that this is a novel exercise. It isn't. And that's why I said I was going to come back to this Yale University Press business. This is what the universities do. They built in violence themselves, then turn around and act as if the discoveries they're making are discoveries. And then what that allows to do is to reinforce the regime of prestige. When you're reinforcing a regime of prestige, you got to go to this school, you got to get this licensure, you got to go there. Then what you're doing, you are making sure that the Baba Adunos of the world operate on the periphery. And even if you're an insurgent in a system like that, certainly as Bob Compton was at St. Mark's Bookstore, you're going to exist even in the system. That radical act still must be tied to the prestige system. They were renting St. Mark's Bookstore for years from Cooper's Union, the institution, university institution, the learning institution. So it's still going to be a criminal enterprise. Well, in order to create a new paradigm, you don't get that new paradigm by writing brilliant books and publishing them at Yale University Press. People say, yes. So what are you going to do now? Why are we thankful? Because ultimately, you're still trying to pour this into a settler state regime that has to be remade. And to remake it, you're not going to remake it by reinforcing it. Even if as you're attacking it, you're reinforcing it. Now, I want us to think about this just for a minute in this question. And when Baba Mariba asked this question, why are we thankful? It sparked an intergenerational dialogue. And ultimately, while this system is fighting and ripping itself apart, and make no mistake, it is ripping itself apart, we have to discern, those of us who want a different world, what our collective interests are. This is why I love this. He talked a lot the other night about human capital. Human capital. So, Prof, you're absolutely right in that conversation you were having yesterday. I mean, here's a guy saying, hey, we got all these resources stacked up against us, all these billionaire mad scientists, all these people thinking, let's just invent something. I don't want to worry about the social consequences. A Leviathan, what the hell is that? Capitalism. Let's make this money. It's going to make it easier. And then I'm going to set this aside because this is going to put us all out of work. And then, it's going to put us all out of existence, bro. Okay, all right. No, it's not. No, it's not. Why? Because I was in the shower this morning and I dreamed up a way where it wouldn't put us out of business. Okay, Tony Stark is not real. You do understand that, right? But the concept of overreach is absolutely real. Ask what's going on in Israel and Palestine right now, because ultimately settler colonialism is now front and center in the world stage because you've done this for the last 1,000 years. But now this might be the time you've done it one time too many, and you've doubled and quadrupled down, and now you have to make a stand. But just because you think it's going to happen that way doesn't mean it's going to happen that way. So you got all these resource people, this tiny group on one side, and then you got the vast ocean of humanity on the other side of the scale. That human capital Baba Reed was talking about, that community that you were talking about a minute, Prof, but we got to activate that. So ultimately, while this group is fighting to control us all, we have to discern what's in our collective interest and then execute what is best to achieve that. That's the governance formation. So when Black Hawk's book is trying to reposition this narrative on this Thanksgiving weekend in the United States, in a prestige regime that allows the social structure to maintain its power while congratulating itself for recognizing it's a criminal enterprise, the world is on fire. And as the world is on fire, we have to do two things. Number one, take note of what's going on in the social structure. Well, we got to do that. That's why we have the African States framework. And number two, we have to then, having regard that, reconnect to what makes us capable of transforming this world, not only for ourselves, but for everyone who wants to live abundantly, live in their full humanity, but also live in a way that is not conducive to death, because that's really what we're facing right now. So I'm going to keep this short today. I'm thinking about this in the context, again, the world being on fire, Netherlands, right? Y'all saw what happened. In fact, this was, let me see, this was when I was coming down on the bus, I'm reading the paper, and this is just after this fool, Javier Milei, who we talked about in office hours on Monday night because he had just won the election in Argentina. He's a libertarian economist. He's now the president of Argentina. There he is, he ain't looking as crazy as he is. But the guy Emilio Ocampo, who he was going to put over the central bank in Argentina, declined being put in charge of the bank because this guy ran on a promise that he was going to destroy the Argentinian infrastructure, including the economic infrastructure, beginning with dollarizing the Argentinian economy, which means destroying the central bank. So the guy he was going to put in charge of the central bank was like, "Oh, slow your roll, chief. Yikes, I don't know if we should do that." And so now he's calling himself going to walk himself back away from that. My point is this: they calling him the Trump of Argentina. See, I love this convenience of trying to make Trump as some kind of leap forward in this mess. No, he's a symptom. They're all symptoms. But the problem is when you don't participate in the process, this guy gets elected. Now, of course, this is yesterday's paper. So while they're talking about that, this guy, Geert Wilders, he a right winger, a nationalist in the Netherlands. He's gearing up to be the prime minister of the Netherlands. Why? Because his party, Party for Freedom, which advocates banning the Quran, closing Islamic schools, and entirely halting the acceptance of asylum seekers, won 37 seats in the 150-seat House of Representatives this week, making it by far the biggest party and a clear rebuke of this country's political establishment. Meaning what? This guy is a right winger. These are hate-fueled guys getting in charge of countries. And in the Netherlands, he's got to cobble a government together, and he's probably going to have to walk back some of the things. Well, my point is that Europeans are moving in that direction. That isn't to say that other people aren't having their challenges, but the world is on fire in many ways. Now, here in the United States, for those who are listening and who are participating this morning here, or this afternoon, this evening, if you're in the United States, in this conversation today, we see that the right wingers and those who have interests other than our common humanity are attempting to maintain control of the political apparatus here. I'm sure y'all saw, where this guy Lyndon Nelson offered, at least Hill Harper says, Lyndon Nelson, this donor, offered him $20 million to run against Rashida Tlaib. And he said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try to take out the only Palestinian American in the United States House of Representatives," because people are pushing back against these people who think they can just play mad scientists and use their money to do it. Well, that's not the only thing that happened in the United States this week. If you look at the voting rights case, look at what happened in the Arkansas State Conference of the NAACP versus Sarah Huckabee Sanders and all those fascists on the other side. The Eighth Circuit in the United States Court of Appeals, that's the one that covers Arkansas, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, North and South Dakota. They affirmed a lower court holding that the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the one that we spilled blood over, the one that, of course, in the documentary Rustin, or any documentary on the so-called civil rights movement, is going to have somewhere near the center of the dialogue, of the discourse, of the telling, of the narrative. The Voting Rights Act, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which allows people to sue, or has up until now allowed individual actors and organizations to sue to say that states have not been enforcing the 15th Amendment, that states are engaged in discriminatory practices which are infringing on, or in many ways obscuring or obliterating people's right to vote, that individual actors don't have. Individual actors don't have what they call a private right of action in the statute, or at least not in the statute and how it's been interpreted, to sue, that the government has to be the one to sue. And so what the Eighth Circuit, which is, how many people on the Eighth Circuit? There are 11 judges on the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, Federal Court of Appeals. 4 of them were appointed by Donald Trump, but here's the kicker. 10 of the 11 were appointed by white nationalists. I'm sorry, the Republican Party. George W. Bush, Donald Trump appointed them. Only 1 was appointed by a Democrat, and that was Barack Obama's pick. But it's very interesting. The chief judge of the Eighth Circuit, a guy named Vince Smith, short for Levinsky Smith. Levinsky Smith, where is he from? He's from Arkansas. He went to the University of Arkansas twice for undergrad and law school. Levinsky Smith is Black. Levinsky Smith was a mouthpiece for Sarah Huckabee Sanders' father, Mike Huckabee, before that. Well, no, actually, no. What's the guy who was, what's that boy name? Not Asa Hutchinson. Maybe Asa Hutchinson, the governor of Arkansas for him. Anyway, Levinsky Smith from Hope, Arkansas. Yeah, the Bill Clinton Hope, Arkansas. But he's a strict conservative in the black church mode conservative. So he and his wife, sister, are conservatives. Biblical references in his decisions. He wrote a law review article in 2009 in the University of Arkansas Law Review entitled Honest to God. Biblical references. He said Christian doctrine and interpreting the U.S. Constitution are not antithetical. Really hardcore campaigner for removing any right to abortion. Also anti same-sex marriage. Very interesting. In fact, he was the judge on the same Eighth Circuit that affirmed the idea that you don't have the right to film the police. If they beating up you or anybody else or any other public official, you can't film them. So this is Levinsky Smith. But even in the case that came down last week, where the Eighth Circuit, his Eighth Circuit, this ultra white nationalist Eighth Circuit said that you don't have the right as as a private actor to sue to protect your voting rights under the Voting Rights Act. Even he had to say, hold on, hold on, hold on. His blackness jumped out his judicial robes, and he wrote a dissent. So I'm reading Levinsky Smith's dissent, and it sounds like he could be Ketanji Brown Jackson in some ways. He said, all this precedent, 50-some years of precedent since the Voting Rights Act, affirms the fact that the courts have interpreted a private right to action in this statute. You can't do this. And they're like, nah, buddy, well done, my good and faithful servant. Come on over here. We're going to make you rule over a few things. In other words, you with us now. And now, in word, we might have to dance with you. Don't get cute. Keep you running. And so when you read that case, what you're seeing is they want to pull back this idea that you can participate in this society. But of course, when you read When Empires Fall, this is how it works. You only allow as much participation as you have to keep the thing going. But if it looks like you are going to lose control, then you start getting more muscular in how you maintain control. That's when you pull out the guns, or that's when you wind up people to believe that they are defending something bigger than them, which is why it's a fascinating, again, this last chapter of the book, Death of the Nation, is talking about the question of the nation state and how identity is used to do that as well. There's another couple of cases that came out this week that I think are important, and we'll kind of wind to a close for today. The United States seems to be moving toward that thing where it's going to be an open clash. You saw the Bruin case in New York last year, where they're basically saying anybody, you can't pass no state law that infringes on the Second Amendment. If you want a gun, you can have a gun. Which is why this Texas case that came out a couple of weeks ago that we talked about, that was decided a couple of weeks ago, where you've got, or at least argued at the Supreme Court, where you've got this domestic abuser, well documented, shooting at people, beating up the sister, this kind of thing. Now, can he have a gun? Now they scared. Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito are like, yeah, everybody can have a gun. But John Roberts and Beer Kavanaugh, they're a little nervous now. Why? And Ketanji Brown Jackson kept reminding them, this is what happens when you let everybody have a gun. Y'all decided Bruin last year. Does Bruin now extend to straight up Wild West domestic abusers who known to be out here shooting at people? Does it extend to them? Can they just have a gun too? And now they're nervous. But this latest case was decided, the Fourth Circuit decided, this is Virginia now. Virginia's covered with that. Maryland's covered with that. This is maybe the blackest district outside the South. The Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals had a ruling that there's a licensing requirement in the state of Maryland for handguns, and they said that's unconstitutional. And as I said a minute ago, the Oregon State Court, there's a state judge in Oregon that said a 2022 ballot initiative where the people in Oregon voted to require background checks, to ban high-capacity magazines, saying that violates the state constitution of Oregon. So here, in a summary, is where I'm going with this. We're living in the United States in a society where the courts are saying, many of them appointed by people who were appointed by elected representatives, and many people now voting, this is what happens, that are saying, when it comes to the Second Amendment and just having a gun and willy-nilly, oh yeah, we're going to make that as expansive as possible. We're going to rule that as expansive as possible. When it comes to the 14th Amendment, equal protection, the 15th Amendment, Voting, we're going to shrink that one as narrow as possible. But as Malcolm X used to say, there's no new law, there's no new statute, there's no new constitution, there's no amendments. No, we're going to interpret these as narrowly as possible when it serves our interest, and as broadly as possible when it allows us to retain power. That is where we are right now. So, when Baba Mariba asks, what are we thankful for? On a day and a weekend when capitalism is run amok with Black Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Black 365 for that matter, when we have a ritual day, we say, well, it's not about Thanksgiving, it's about community. I'm thankful for my family. Yeah, but it's got to have more than that. Because guess what? Cultural meaning making in our framework, our African States framework, is about more than celebration, more than expressing yourself through food and music. And no, it's also about movement and memory. You have to have institutional memory and narrative. That's why fighting over narratives are important. Who tells a story and how do they tell the story? So a lot of things in my mind these few days, and thinking about as we think about next week when we are going to get together Monday night with W.E.B. Du Bois, the education of Black people during office hours, 8 p.m. Eastern time in Nubia. We're going to start with the introduction and front matter. Why Du Bois made these speeches at HBCUs to the importance of education of Black people. Something that really was dropped like a weight in my mind after last week being in Philly at the Black Male Educator convening and listening to Tony Walton, superintendent of schools in Philly, and State Senator Vince Hughes talk about this importance. I said, we need to really spend some time with that before we go back into our next iteration of the intro class. And thinking about Friday night, the 1st of December, when we'll gather at 8 in Nubia with Nubia and Refill. And, look at what happens when a community comes together to stop a wrong and how that fortifies us out of our governance formation with the Clark Johnson directed film Boycott, based on the book The Thunder of Angels and the testimony of those who participated in the Montgomery bus boycott. This being the 1st of December, 2023, being the anniversary of the beginning of the 1955 boycott. All of these things in my mind are boiling around in an attempt to answer Baba Mariba Kelsey's question. What are we thankful for? Um, and there's one other thing I want to mention, because again, I mentioned Carlton Pearson earlier, and Carlton Pearson's fascinating to me. He used to sing them good old good ones. Carlton Pearson was he came up in that Pentecostal tradition. Although he was with Oral Roberts, he's a registered Republican. That's what it is. What it is. I suppose, like Levinsky Smith, there is a certain conviction out of our ways of knowing that resonates, quote unquote, with the political conservatism and the social structure. But when he says, as a Christian, his way of knowing, he said, I thought about it and I said, if I believe in Jesus Christ and he was crucified, and I would love to hear Jeremiah Wright talk about this. In fact, I'm looking forward to hearing some of his views on this, because I would love to. I don't think I've ever asked you, Baba, about Carlton Pearson. I don't know how I didn't, but I'm looking forward to this. He's like, if Christ died on the cross for all our sins, then there's no need for a Mother May I moment for you to achieve salvation, if that's your way of knowing. What about gay and lesbians? What about, everybody calm down. You're already in. What about the Muslims and the Buddhists? Hey, the sacrifice was for all of us, right? It was for all of us, because they put him out of church. T.D. Jakes wrote this long letter against him, even though he had let Tommy D. Jakes speak at his big convenings he used to have in Tulsa. And to his credit, after he made transition, Jakes said, he gave me my chance when nobody knew me and this kind of thing. But that still don't erase the fact that Jakes stood with them white boys when they put Carlton Pearson out of the denomination. I think he ended up in the United Church of Christ, I think. So I know Baba Jeremiah. I know Baba J. You probably knew him, so I'm looking forward to thinking about it. But I'm thinking about him because he had this notion that he called the gospel of inclusion. Some people call the universal salvation idea. So he said, there's no hell. The hell is on earth. The hell's on earth. I said, man, you sound like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad out here in these ways of knowing streets. But I think about Carlton Pearson and the idea that it's going to be generosity that ties us together. Generosity that ties us together. Generosity that ties us together. I mentioned the Essence magazine. This is the latest issue. I read that when I was riding down. And, The Color Purple, I guess they got another remake of The Color Purple. That's fine. Eventually I'll watch it. But, there's a lot more movies that need to be made. I mean, why I keep remaking The Color Purple, maybe we need to do it. Yeah, I know why they keep remaking it. I suspect, in fact, I'm absolutely sure I know why. they keep remaking, and it ain't got nothing to do with black women versus black men or this academic term that maybe gets some people some tenure and maybe a couple of book contracts. What do they call it, misogynoir or whatever? That's fine. We can have that conversation and should have it, but that ain't what this is about. I don't think. But there's an article in here called "The Future Is Afro," about Afrofuturism and this Afrofuture Fest. All the West Africans and all the people who go to West Africa for this, they call it Dedi December, I guess. Everybody's going there now. So the festival is going to take place in West Africa and Ghana between Christmas Day and New Year's. And so that's Kwanzaa. And of course, there's a whole article in here on Kwanzaa too. I mean, essence is a lot fewer words than when John Henry Clark and everybody was writing about history. LeGrand Clegg was writing in here about history back in the 70s and 80s, but still some interesting articles. But the reason I raised this, and I will end for sure with this, the brother who started it, this cat named Abdullah, what's his name? No, actually, let me quote. Yeah. I'm looking for his first name, but I don't see it immediately, and I didn't mark it. I don't like to necessarily write in the magazines. Here we are. Abdul Karim Abdullah, Afrofuture's New York-born CEO and co-founder. He says this. He says, "Our goal is to touch all parts of the continent," explains Abdullah. "So we're doing a lot more events involving Francophone Africa and Southern Africa." Okay, Francophone, Southern again, Professor Hunter, the language is problematic. "A lot of our global markets don't have experiences that are similar to what we're doing in Ghana." He goes on. Then he says, "Carrying the torch of Black nationalism and civil rights leaders such as Marcus Garvey." Marcus Garvey wasn't a civil rights leader. "Who consistently preached that Black Americans should go back to Africa," they got in quotes. "Afrofuture Fest has given this message of returning to the ancestral homeland a new meaning." This is what Abdullah says. "We want to grow and do a lot more storytelling," says Abdullah. "It's one thing for the diaspora to come together to enjoy music, fashion, food, and art and have a great time in Ghana. In our Africana framework, we would call that cultural meaning making. Here's the distinction between cultural meaning making and movement and memory." Next line, he says, "But it's another thing for us to be able to uniquely tell the nuanced stories of the continent. We do not know enough about each other, and that fosters competition rather than collaboration. By telling more stories and sharing our culture and uplifting what each culture means, it gives us an opportunity to build alliances and increase the appreciation for all those cultures that show up at our festival." That's one thing it does, brother. But the most important thing it does, as we think about what we're thankful for during this quote unquote Thanksgiving season in the United States, a criminal enterprise holiday that should never be celebrated by anyone. Having said that, becoming aware of who we are, learning and connecting in that governance formation allows us to remake the world rather than try to pump new meaning into these dead criminal assaults on our common humanity. That's part of the answer, but we're going to continue to think about that.
Yes. All of that. Yes. First of all, thank you for tying all of these threads together. I was telling you off mic that I'm gathering some things, and I was going through some boxes, and I came across this. My mama sent me.
Oh, you better stop.
Yo,
that is the classic. That's the classic. Yo, what?
Yo, there is an article in here by Howard Thurman.
Yes.
And there's this interesting, and I'm handling it delicately because it was in plastic. There's this piece by this woman, Sarah Paulton, and Sarah Paulton Boyle. It's The Price of Brotherhood. It's a woman that was, for people coming together, this very thing that you were talking about, white woman. That's an early, this 1963, September 1963, this Ebony issue, 1963, 50 cents.
Prof, you really 50 cents. The same month that came out just before, because you know better than I do. They published them right. It says September, but it probably came out late August.
Right.
That's right in that corridor between the March on Washington and those 6 children losing their lives in Birmingham. That special issue, that Frederick Douglass issue is so proud. So there she is writing about this with that cross in the background, and they blew those children up, and with that magazine on the newsstand. That is, it's just, oh man. Wow.
As I was sitting with something published before I was born and recognizing the vision and the love that John Johnson had for us.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
I'm challenging myself to pick up that baton and run with it, but we need so many more, because that's really the key. It can't be one person. He closes his
Can't be
eyes.
one person.
There's no Ebony Essence, Jet Magazine. I mean, no Essence. Well, I'm saying something else.
Let me just say you're doing it, and let me tell you, you're right. You can't just be one person, and it can't just be a bunch of people who then are forgotten about, because we know that the Johnson Publications was the only building built by and owned by Black people on Michigan, right there in that skyscraper, and now it's gone. When the bus pulled into Raleigh, I was having this conversation with Bob Mariba's son Modibo yesterday. Modibo and his family live in Raleigh. When you pull into the bus station in Durham, you see the skyscraper, short skyscraper, with North Carolina Mutual at the top. And I said, it always makes me feel good when you pull in. This is what Modibo said. He said, we used to have meetings in the basement of that building. He went to Morehouse, he undergrad, he did these meetings. And he said, but yeah, North Carolina Mutual doesn't own that building, but they keep the signage.
Wow.
Just like this is what gentrification does. They wipe you out and they put up a historical marker. And I was like, man, it broke my heart, because every time I pull into Durham and see that, it just makes you, institutions don't last if we don't keep them alive. But what you're doing now, you're picking up that baton. But when you wear that pass the baton hoodie, I'm like, that's what you're doing. Johnson Publications has phased out now. Essence is trying to hold on, but it's 5 words on every page, because the reading literally that Ebony, you held up, as you know, the writing, the depth of him, but we can recover that. That's why you've gotten the hub and the global majority. This is, I'm telling you, no, rest assured, sis. We just got to surround you. You know what I'm saying? And join. Yeah, because that's hard work. It's thankless work. But ultimately, we're not going to get free without that work, Prof.
Yeah. Freedom is not free. Speaking of that, the latest global majority drop is in full effect. Freedom is not free is the message.
Come on.
Because it requires something of us. It will end on the 1st of December. I'm saying that now because this time next week the drop will be ended. So 12:01 a.m. So we're doing these drops, and again, the clothing is not about the clothing, even though the clothing is dope. The black on black, and it's black on black. And I had Daniel Black on when we
I saw the black on black.
The alignment was so weird, and we dropped a record because in the previous drop we had a young man, Rick, who works with me on the global majority. He was in the music industry. He used to manage Pimp C, of all people. And we were having this conversation. And he said, let me drop some music with the clothing. And so we did that with the drop in the summer. And everybody was like, who's the artist? Who's the artist? So we brought the artist. He gets 100% of his proceeds. New song. It's called Black on Black. You can get it on Bandcamp. Look for K-A-Y Franklin. Search K-A-Y Franklin on bandcamp.com. He gets 100% of his proceeds because everybody should eat in a situation, so you lend your voice to my drop. Hopefully people love the song. They'll buy the song. It doesn't cost but $1. So let's support this young brother so he can get 100% of his proceeds and not have to go through a label. This is the way we win. We win collectively, like I got my thing. He has his thing. We all come together as one big gumbo pot where everyone can eat because you brought your ingredient or your brick, in this case, in Nubia. And that's how that works. That's how we build the kind of community we want to live in. I don't need a percentage of his stuff. Rick doesn't need a percentage of his music, and he's helping, launch the Black on Black for the global majority. I'm super happy. The song is dope. The song is amazing. He's amazing. And so thank you for bringing that up, because I was not going to talk about.
Oh, no, you have to. No. This is why we're here. This is a stable nation, and it's not just Black folks. So a lot of people in here not Black. Y'all make sure. I mean, hey, we saw Rosalind Carter went on in at the beginning of the week. We can embrace this, and so in our common humanity. No, I mean, this platform you've introduced and built, and then we're all joining and building with you. This is what it has to be for this.
I had a non-melanated woman ask if she could buy a global majority shirt. Would I be offended? I was like, no. I mean, that's the goal is like we are one, right? We are one. All of us originated in this place. We're the global majority. So why not?
That's
Why
right.
not wear it with pride if you're an
Come on.
accomplice in this thing
Come
called
on.
humanity? We are all trying to get to freedom.
That's right.
So yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
wear it, buy it.
Yeah, yeah, no question. And
And
in fact, well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
no, go. In fact.
No, I'm just thinking about, like you said, the fortuitous timing. We were at Mama Ya's ritual funeral when the news dropped about Rosalynn Carter, between the wake and the funeral. And, people reflecting on it. The Carter administration, it was the president's administration. So, of course, it had crimes. And we could talk about the United States and Africa. But, somebody said, we were talking about it, in some ways, that might have been, in terms of political sensibility, the blackest president the United States will ever get. It's not Barack Obama. It's Jimmy Carter. In fact, I picked another copy of this up the other day with the bookstore. Carter's Peace, Not Apartheid. You know what I'm saying? About, this is Jimmy Carter, Peace, Not Apartheid. And so this is a cape of him, but to be in Atlanta, reading the Atlanta Journal-Constitution the last couple of days, listen, Jimmy Carter's a fascinating figure. When we talked about that, didn't we, probably about a month and a half ago, Jonathan Alter's book on Carter. But Rosalynn Carter is a fascinating moment when we think about that. We're not going to see those types of people again in this thing. It's going in the other direction.
Let me say, I spent Monday honoring her because it was this little story my producer pulled of the nanny that they had, a woman that was in prison for murder, who came to the governor's mansion on a work program, was the nanny for little Amy. When President Carter got elected, they sent her back to jail. But she came to the inauguration, and Rosalynn Carter asked her if she would come to the White House and nanny. And Jimmy Carter became a parole officer while he was president. This black woman, you think about,
come on.
And people, and I had to say this because people were telling them, distance yourself from this woman. She's, whether she's innocent or not, she's still a jailbird or whatever. And Rosalynn Carter and Jimmy Carter were like, no, I know who this woman is. She was good for Amy when we were in the governor's mansion. She's gonna be good for Amy in this White House. And that woman came with them in the White House. And I think about people telling people to distance themselves from people because they're problematic. And the Carters have character. They have character because they were like, no, we're gonna align ourselves. And I think it did hurt them, and it allowed.
Oh, sure it did. Sure it did.
And use that whole, crime and welfare and depicting black people a certain kind of way. But the Carters didn't do that. And I think about government cheese. Thank you, Michael Harriet, because I'm going to talk about that on Monday, too.
Hey, and Mike did that, didn't he? About where it came from. People don't know that. And we all had the government cheese.
And I went on a deep dive, but it was Carter. Carter put solar panels in the solar panels. Because he knew it was going to be a thing. We need to, preserve all of that. He did the government cheese, gave subsidies to the dairy farmers because he wanted to provide relief. It was such a good program that they had too much milk, too much dairy, and they made it into cheese. And then Reagan's ass. Oh my goodness! So I mean, it's just
come on. Hey, look, if you believe what you believe, make America great. Y'all should make America great again. You should embrace that. Embrace your godless, anti-human philosophy. But one thing you got to say about James Earl Carter and Rosalynn Carter, whatever they believed it in how they lived. That's a different thing. I mean, so if you're going to sit up in that little Sunday school lesson with Jimmy Carter and Plains Georgia, he going to make that into his life. I mean, whatever. And I'm not being uncritical of Carter. I'm just saying, but in that moment, I think you're making a very important point. And this is why evangelical Christianity, people assume it's white supremacists. No, not always. No, not always at all. That's a political decision.
Yes.
And y'all want to run up behind Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump, which means it was never about Christianity for y'all. It's about white supremacy. Because we got an example of a white man from the South who would call himself a Christian who acted very differently. So don't be trying to put this on that way of knowing. This is about something else.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Building houses for people. I mean, but you think about, we need to separate. The office of the presidency has, to me, I think people handed a binder of what you can and what you will not do in that office.
That's right.
I'm sure.
That's no question.
oh, wait a minute. I thought I was going to be able, no, you ain't going to be able to do nothing because you ain't really running this. I'm sure that there's a binder of that. But then there's a way in which you can see humanity play out. And with all of the, we had gas lines. I remember having the odd even license plates in Jersey, having to wait in line for gas. I remember the high inflation. I remember all of that. And it was blamed on Carter. Yeah. The hostages that we know now, there was a backdoor deal to keep them. Like there was a lot of things to demonize this man, one of the smartest people to ever hold office, highest IQ, and cared about people, period.
That's right.
Dying breath, still doing Sunday school.
And seen as a weakness.
Yes.
You get on television to tell people turn their temperature down. You put on a sweater and then they clown you. Really? Y'all really? The man, you say I've lusted after a woman in my heart. Okay, who hasn't? Because you got a Speaker of the House now who's invisible adopted black son. They swapping porn.
That was the son? I thought it was.
Yeah.
That was the black son that they're doing porn to check each other to see.
Oh, wait, no. No, maybe it was the white son. But he said, what was the kind of accountability partner?
Accountability to make sure that I'm not watching porn or too much porn.
Right.
Like,
and Jimmy Carter just basically said, to go circle our way back to the Macy's parade, never trust a big button to smile. I saw the booty and I couldn't be. I just lusted. Oh, this guy's a criminal. No, you're not a criminal, man. I mean, isn't it something, Professor Hunter? All we have to do is pay attention. You can see how this thing unfolds. But if we don't pay attention, we think that something's going to change simply because, it's got to change. It's not going to change.
We make the change, and we got to remember, and this is what I love so much. I'm thankful for this space because you are forcing me to pick up something that I didn't, my mother said to me years ago, and I'm unpacking boxes, and I'm like, 1963 September, hold on, this Emancipation Proclamation issue, Howard Thurman, who we did a whole session, you should know,
sure did,
narrative. Please watch the Howard Thurman because you introduced him to me, Jesus and the Disinherited, and I'm to this day I'm like, oh my goodness! And it's a small book; you can all read it. Thank you. Yes. I'm thankful for you.
No, thank you. I love you talking when you talk with Otis Moss about Jesus. In other words, these theologians now you can't just walk up in Sirius XM on Karen Hunter show now. And go, oh yeah, wait, what? Oh yeah, no, come on, wait, this your area, right? I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm just loving it. I'm loving it, Prof. The conversation is. I'm sorry, I'm on the small device stick, so I can't jump on the narrative in YouTube. But somebody just said, I see Dr. Goddess, who was out here in these social media streets for real. She said, Daddy December was going on in Nigeria and Ghana stuff way before anybody's festivals. Which, yeah, we know. But this is how we know. The more we learn, the more we connect, the more we're able to free ourselves. And we can't thank you enough. And I'm thankful for that. I think we all are in this space where we need to say, as Bob and Reba would say, what are we thankful for and why are we thankful?
I not adjacent, but not anything. I just breaking news. Derek Chauvin was stabbed in prison. So that was it. I just wanted to let y'all know that. Okay. So.
Oh, what? Oh, well.
Yeah, that's it. So listen.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Maybe can you go to Morehouse Medical Associates? You can go Morehouse School of Medicine.
Where's he in prison? Somewhere in Minnesota? Listen.
Oh, I guess, I don't know. But I guess it goes show you, what is, they said Laura Hill making a comeback. What's the future? Ready or not, you can't hide. We're going to find you. And take it slowly. Anyway.
Right. It just speaks to that we need reform in the prisons because clearly they're not safe. No one should.
They're not. No, nobody should be staying.
Yeah.
No, that's right. Nobody should. That's right. Nobody should. Nobody should.
Reform in the prisons. Okay. Listen. Nobody. Have safe travels. We'll see you on Monday.
See you on Monday, and thank you, Dr. Amin, for keeping us healthy.
Yes. They watched Quilombo last week.
No, stop playing.
Yeah, they did their own Nubia and refill on Sunday.
That's what we were. We were trying to figure it out Monday night. Which one? Oh, Quilombo.
Yes.
Ganga Zumba. That's the joint right there.
Dr. Amin is doing that work. So Maroon's Medicine Chats, we got some Dr. Narissa mental health tomorrow in Nubia, as well as some yoga, because mind, body, and soul, we doing it all. And thank you for being a beacon here. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Love you.
All right.
See you soon.
You too. Bye-bye.